Hi, good evening, C3 parents, and it is an amazing time to see all of you. I am very excited to have this conversation with you tonight, and we're actually just going to talk about why non-punitive parenting works. Now, first of all, to understand what non-punitive parenting is, it is parenting that is not punishing a child for being human, and it's not punishing a child for making mistakes or even for certain sets of disobedience. What we need to understand when we talk about non-punitive parenting is basically being your child's life coach or being your child's coach. And one of the ways that we do that is through dialogue, conversation, and actually talking it through. But understanding why non-punitive parenting works is first we need to dispel a certain myth. There is a myth doing the rounds that when a child is not punished for behavior that is unacceptable or for wrong behavior, immediately the assumption is that the child doesn't have any discipline, that there is no discipline, and therefore almost like non-punitive parenting is viewed as non-parenting, which is a big myth. Non-punitive parenting does have boundaries, it does have guides, it does have certain ways that we handle situations, but it does not mean that we are in any way punishing the child for their humanity. We are not looking for ways to teach a child a lesson. What we're trying to do is to help a child understand and grow and actually internalize, and first of all, unconditional love, and second of all, understand that my actions have an impact on other people and it has an impact on myself as well. So let's quickly look at some of the things that people do believe is non-punitive in a misguided attempt. Misguided might be a too harsh a word. See, now I've flawed myself. In an attempt to stop spanking or to stop screaming. So some of the types of consequences which a lot of people believe is what one should, instead of calling it punishment, now we call it consequences. If the consequences are still teaching a child that love is conditional, then it's punishment, then it is not consequences. So let's start with consequences before I babble on in a different direction. All right, so when we talk about consequences, we talk about logical and natural consequences. And obviously we will measure that according to a child's age. And when we talk about logical and natural consequences, we look at situations that correlate directly with whatever action happened. A natural consequence or a natural flow of events would be I have a boundary, my child cannot cross the parking lot without either holding my hand or me carrying him, and then if he tries to run across the parking lot, obviously that natural consequence will be the car kills him. Logical consequence will be where I catch my child and say, you know what, buddy, you seem today that you're not capable of keeping your own body safe, so I'm going to help you. I'm going to keep your body safe. I'm going to take across the parking lot with you in my arms. When we're at the other side, I'll put you down and you can hold my hand again. So it is not to punish the child. It is literally to guide the child to have safe life practices. The moment the reaction is child tries to run across the parking lot, I grab child back and I give child smack, or I tell child shout at my child, immediately it becomes punitive, and immediately their behavior becomes a conditional relation to me. You're only approved of, you're only loved, you're only supported when you behave the way that I choose for you to behave, and only then you are loved. So when we talk about parenting that is sold as non-punitive but is actually punitive, we're talking about things like time out, shouting, and unrelated consequences that happens. So when we talk about time out, What basically happens is when we put a child in timeout and we withdraw our attention and our love, immediately they experience, first of all, a relational breakdown, and they actually experience it as love withdrawal. And they are basically being isolated. Now, every human being is born with the drive, and the mental drive, it's like literally imprinted in their DNA to want to belong, to be accepted, to be part, and to be safe. Now, a child, the younger they are, obviously their brain, if you attend one of the workshops, and some of the workshops we really intently focus on the brain development, but their brain development is in such a way that they cannot distinguish between, I need to sit here on the chair or on my bed or whatever and think about what I did wrong. What is going through their mind is actually a fight or flight response, and what's going through their mind is, I'm being left alone, they don't want me, they don't love me, and I'm going to die. They've got no way to distinguish between real danger and the perceived danger, because their brain is not capable of doing that. So that is one of the biggest issues with a timeout, is the isolation that happens with a child. Now a non-punitive parenting technique that one can use when you have been using timeout to try and correct or to steer the boat in the right direction, or get a grip on things again, is what we call a time in, which means that child did something that you disagree with or that you're not happy with. There is no natural, real, logical consequence that you can think of, but you want your child to stop doing a certain activity, or they're busy going through an emotional outburst. What we then do is we do a time in. We take our child, we move them to a safe space for their own safety, for your safety, a space where they can calm down, where there is a little bit of less sensory input, and we sit with them and we give them space, and we tell them, yes, you know what, it is okay, work through emotions, I'm here for you, I am here with you, you are not alone, I am not afraid of your emotions, I'm not afraid of what you've done, I need you to work through this, and we need to have a conversation. And then you guys, when the little one has calmed down, that is when we start our conversations, and we actually talk things through so they can understand why they were stopped, why they were blocked, why whatever behavior they exhibited was not acceptable. But nowhere in that whole process of time in do you shout at the child, do you punish the child, or do you even threaten the child, because it actually brings about nothing positive in that situation at that particular point in time. If the child is older, they can have a choice whether they want to work through the emotions with you or without you, but it must always be their choice. Some kids find emotions as extremely overwhelming, as extremely threatening, especially negative emotions, because with positive emotions, our whole body feels elated. There's a physiological elation. With negative emotions, we actually feel angst, and our bodies don't feel well, and we just don't feel good. So when they're experiencing negative emotions, some of the kids can actually really be threatened by it and very overpowered by it. So by staying by their side, you're telling them there's nothing to be afraid, even though their body is feeling icky, even though their emotions is all over the show. You're not afraid of it, and they don't have to be afraid of it, and you will protect them, even if it means protecting them against themselves. When it comes to shouting, a lot of parents now feels like, well, I'm not allowed to spank anymore, so now they are passive aggressively recommending shouting at a child. That is also punitive, because the shouting actually, because it creates a negative emotion in the child's body, immediately angst and fear actually rises in their bodies, and the same hormones and same cortisol and reaction that you would get from being attacked by someone gets released by being shouted by someone. So shouting and spanking kind of falls, not just kind of, they fall in the same category of punitive parenting. So when we're talking about shouting, the biggest thing is, why are you as a parent shouting? And 99.9999% of the time, a parent is shouting because they feel they have lost control. And shouting is the first sign that you as a parent have lost control over the situation, over yourself. And So when we're trying to stop shouting, our own shouting at our children, the first thing that we need to do as a parent is we need to check ourselves. We need to start realizing that our body is giving us warning signals way long before we start shouting, that we are heading into the zone of, I'm going to shout. I am going to lose my cool. I'm going to lose control of the situation. So one of the things that I personally know from myself, and you will have to go and sit down with yourself, is to pay attention. What is your body feeling like right before you shout, right before you lose your cool? I can feel my shoulders like falling up to my ears, and I can feel like my stomach like pulls together, and my jaw stiffens. So actually looking at the physiological aspects of what my body, the warning signals my body is sending me to say, you're going to lose control, you are moving into the danger zone. The moment I catch my body doing that, I can actually stop and take a moment and breathe. And then after I've breathed, tell the kids, listen here, you know what? I really don't want to end up shouting at you, because I know that is not the best way to handle the situation. I'm going to take 5 minutes to go calm down, work through my own emotions. You're welcome to come snuggle with me if that is what you feel you want to do. But for now, I need space. If I'm not in a space where I would like snuggles with my kids, I would say to them, you know what? I really don't want to shout at you, and I don't want to fight with you. I need space so I can calm down and work through my emotions, and then I can speak to you, and then we can all be calm and we can work through this problem. And it's interesting, I've been modeling that for quite some time now with my kids, because there was a stage that I was a screamer. I don't know, I was a screamer. Oh boy. Anyway, there was a stage that I was a screamer, and I've started seeing my own kids modeling it. And that is one of the most amazing things about non-punitive parenting, that when we experience emotional crisis, when we experience disobedience, through how we model, how we handle the situation, our child is actually more capable of understanding what's going on than being fought with or than being punished. Because when we work with punishment or consequences, that is a veiled word for punishment, then we're still basically putting our children in fight, flight, or fright, and their brain is absolutely incapable of learning out of the experience. So by modeling how we ourselves handle negative emotions, how we ourselves handle our own mistakes, and how we handle our own humanity, actually teaches our children how to handle it themselves, how to understand their own bodies and go, I need to step out of this situation. I'm reaching a point where my top is going to blow. And I've seen my own kids actually modeling that and trying that. Currently, due to their age, with less success than victories, but they're continuously trying. And every time that I see they try, I encourage them, and I say, I can see you're really trying to get out of the situation. Do you need my support? Do you need me to help you? And sometimes I will say, yes, please help. Other times I'm like, I have got this. And then the top blows, which means I kind of missed the cue. But they are learning, and they're gracious, and they're kind, and they're trying to push things in place while they are busy crying. So when we talk about non-punitive parenting, it is a lot of parenting that happens as you, as the parent, as the model. How you handle anger, how you handle disappointment, how you handle even your power position. As a parent, you are already in authority. You will not lose your authority by apologizing. You will not lose your authority by being human and making mistakes. Where you lose your authority in both those scenarios is when you apologize with a justification that it was your child's fault, that you lost control. If your apology comes with justifications, that means it's not a true apology. When you've made mistakes and you don't apologize, that is when you lose your authority. That is when you lose your power as a parent, because the power dynamics between a child and a parent has always been one where the parent is the one that is in control, and the child is, in a sense, helpless against whatever the parent decides. If you decide to go to a non-punitive route with parenting, you're still in that power dynamic. But what you do is you uplift your child into a let's have a conversation. We're not necessarily equals. I'm still the parent. I still have the power to override certain things, things that threaten your safety, threaten other people's safety, and maybe even trip up your development. I can override that, but I will not just override it as a flat-out statement. I will actually have a conversation with you. I will deal with you as if you are, what you truly are, a human being, and a human being that is still learning, and whose brain is still developing and growing and expanding with new knowledge. You might have seen earlier tonight, I posted a little thingy that we had, the contract that we have with our 7-year-old. We have introduced responsibilities, and he's enjoyed it since childhood. And all of a sudden, going through his developmental leap that he's going through a maturity leap, he challenged us and said, "Well, I don't like the roles and responsibilities in this house." And as a if we were a punitive family, the answer would have been, "Well, you don't have a say. Sorry for you. You do what we tell you to do, and that would be it." Where with non-punitive parenting, we sat down and we said, "Okay, fine. You're not happy with this. Let's negotiate. Let's bring everything to the table. Here's a list of responsibilities that makes this house function. Here's all the things that you can pick from, and choose what you want." We actually said to him, he needs to only choose 7. He picked 10, and we signed a deal and we signed a contract. And the nice thing about that was, now there's and if you actually look closely to that, there's no punishment connected to not sticking with their rules and responsibilities. There's no punishment to that. This is what you chose to be part of. And every time that he did this like earlier today, I don't feel like doing the dishwasher. And I said, "Okay, fine. Well, you signed the contract. You said you're going to do that. I'm not going to tell you when, but I need you to do it before you go to bed." After dinner tonight, he came to me and said to me, "I did sign the contract now." And I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll go do it." And he went to do it, which is an amazing sign of taking responsibility on his own shoulders. And that is one of the joys of non-punitive parenting. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am going to try and do more live feeds. I've been neglecting everyone. I humbly apologize. Love you all, and have a great evening. And if you have any further questions, if you watch this afterwards, please feel free to post a comment. I will try to get back to them. If not, drop me an inbox. As you all know, life happens, and I have a blessed evening and have a good night. Thank you. Bye.